Absolute disaster. That's all I could think to myself as I watched Justin Fields and the Bears offense get embarrassed on Sunday against the Browns. It was the worst case scenario for a rookie quarterback's NFL debut. From opponent to offensive line play to coaching, it was worse than even the most pessimistic of fans could have imagined. And as fans, when we see such a shocking result, the first reaction is to assign blame. In this case, the scapegoat is Bears head coach Matt Nagy, who's been criticized for constructing a bad game plan for his rookie quarterback. Before I get into what went wrong and who was to blame though, let me first start by going over what I thought of Justin Fields pre-draft. The biggest issue I outlined in my scouting report on him back in April was his performance under pressure. When Fields was pressured in 2020 at Ohio State, he completed just 42% of his passes, averaged 5.8 yards per attempt, and posted a passer rating of just 54.1. He was by far the worst of the top 5 quarterback prospects when facing pressure, and to make matters worse, Fields excels when he can hold onto the ball for a long time and when he can throw deep. So, to support his play style and difficulty with pressure, I believed that a good offensive line would be a necessity early in Fields' career to help him adjust to the NFL. Considering Chicago's subpar at best offensive line and Cleveland's nightmare of a defensive line, we all should have known going in that the Browns were going to dominate up front. By the end of the game, Fields was pressured on over half of his dropbacks, and blame for that insane pressure rate has mostly been put on Matt Nagy, but Nagy isn't totally at fault. One of the ideas going around is that Nagy didn't give his offensive line enough help and should have used more tight ends and running backs in pass protection. It's easy to assume that this is the case, but according to Pro Football Focus, Chicago used 5 in protection only 60% of the time on Sunday, which is far below average. Nagy did try to use backs and tight ends to help his offensive line, but extra protectors doesn't necessarily lead to better protection. Take this play from early in the third quarter as an example. The play design calls for an over route from Allen Robinson and mirrored go routes on each side of the formation. The over route is designed to pull the free safety down, creating a one-on-one matchup for Marquise Goodwin on the outside. Goodwin is one of the fastest players in the league, so the protection just needs to hold up until he wins vertically. To help ensure this happens, Matt Nagy called for both the running back and the tight end to help in protection. Post-snap, the tight end chips Jadeveon Clowney on the edge, and the running back picks up the stunt on the interior. So both of them did their jobs, but Fields still got sacked because Bears right tackle Jermaine Ifedi couldn't hold up long enough. And the worst part is, Goodwin got open. Fields just didn't have the time to get the ball out. Even when the Bears did use extra players in protection, the Browns still got pressure, so the next step would be to move the pocket with design rollouts, which Nagy also did, or at least tried to do. Here's one of those designed rollouts from the third quarter. There are multiple problems with this play, first of which is the way Cole Kmet runs his route. The route concept is designed to stretch the defense vertically by having 3 receivers run routes to the sideline at varying depths. Kmet goes to the flat, Jimmy Graham runs an intermediate cross, and Marquise Goodwin runs a deep comeback. Now, watch how Kmet starts to bend his route vertically as Justin Fields rolls out. This completely screws up the spacing of the concept, taking away any chance Fields had at completing this pass to Jimmy Graham, who otherwise probably would have been open. So Fields instead throws deep down the sideline to Marquise Goodwin, who doesn't work back to the ball and lets Greg Newsome break the pass up. The offense was simply out-executed on this play and 2 of the other 3 designed rollouts that Chicago called. Should Nagy have moved the pocket more? Probably, but this wasn't some game-breaking flaw in his game plan. Now, don't get me wrong, Nagy's game plan absolutely had issues, one of them being his inability to take advantage of defensive alignment. Because the pass protection couldn't hold up, Nagy sometimes opted to go empty in an effort to identify coverages and find matchups to exploit without putting too much stress on the offensive line. I want you to first look at this play from early in the third quarter. When teams go with an empty backfield like this, they usually split a running back out wide in an effort to identify the defense's coverage. If the defense matches the running back with a linebacker, it's almost always man coverage. But if the defense matches the running back with a cornerback, it's almost always zone coverage. Here, Browns cornerback Denzel Ward lines up on the outside opposite Bears running back David Montgomery, which should indicate zone coverage. Match that information with the single high safety shell, and cover 3 zone with a 5-man blitz seems like the most likely call from the Browns defense. If that's the case, Darnell Mooney should have no problem getting open on his slant route when the linebacker lined up opposite him assumes his flat responsibility. But the Browns didn't call cover 3 zone, they called cover 1 man. Despite aligning their star cornerback Denzel Ward on the outside against a running back, Cleveland was actually in man coverage, meaning Darnell Mooney, a very good route runner, was aligned in the slot against a linebacker. So post-snap, Fields' pass to Mooney was broken up immediately because Browns linebacker Malcolm Smith was covering him man-to-man. As George Bush once said, "Fool me once, you can't get fooled again." Matt Nagy should have been itching to see this look again, ready to either let Mooney or Allen Robinson torch one of those defenders in man coverage, but for whatever reason, he wasn't. It took Nagy a couple of plays into the next drive to go back into empty, and once again, the Browns showed zone coverage pre-snap by aligning Denzel Ward on the outside against Damian Williams. Considering what happened on the last drive, Nagy should have been expecting to see man coverage post-snap, or at least should have been prepared for it, but he wasn't. Pre-snap, you have Allen Robinson aligned in the slot against Browns safety Grant Delpit, and as great as Delpit is, he has no business covering Allen Robinson man-to-man in the slot. You can even see him go to Denzel Ward pre-snap, probably saying, "Seriously? Coach wants me in the slot on A-Rob?" This was the mismatch that coaches look for when they go into empty, but Nagy completely failed to exploit it. He called a flood concept designed to attack cover 3, implying that he didn't pick up on Cleveland's disguised coverage, and he had no intention of exploiting the mismatch in the slot. Nagy's game plan was not good, but at the same time, blaming everything on him is counterproductive. The offensive line was terrible, the receivers didn't separate consistently, and Nagy was right about Justin Fields not being ready. Fields not only struggled with pressure, he struggled to play his role in preventing that pressure, which is making the right protection calls. Pass protection calls can be broken down into 2 categories: full slide and man-to-man. A full slide protection call would tell each offensive lineman to slide one way and the running back to pick up the opposite side edge, while a man-to-man protection call would tell each lineman to block the man aligned opposite him. Full slide protection isn't used often outside of the quick game because a running back can't be expected to hold up against an edge defender in pass protection, and man-to-man protection is very susceptible to blitzes and defensive line stunts. So most offenses use some form of half slide protection, which tells half of the offensive line to slide while the other half blocks the man covering them. Half-slide protection will usually call for the slide side to be whichever side a blitz is more likely to come from, or whichever side has a pass rusher who requires extra attention. On this play from early in the 4th quarter, there are 2 reasons why the slide side should be the offensive left. First, the most likely blitz threat is the linebacker aligned opposite the running back. Second, the defensive lineman aligned in the 4-eye technique on the left side is Myles Garrett, who I probably don't need to tell you had 4.5 sacks in this game and is currently the frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year. Fields, however, doesn't make the right protection call, which creates a one-on-one matchup between Garrett and Bears left guard Cody Whitehair. This cross chop that Garrett pulls off right here is one of the nastiest pass rush moves I've ever seen, and I'm not sure if it would have been blockable even if the left side of the line did slide, but this move is why the line should have been sliding toward Garrett in the first place. And if Fields did have more time, he could have hit his running back on the other side of the formation. But because of the pressure from Garrett, he didn't have time to progress. Fields wasn't ready for this game, and like I said in my scouting report on him back in April, putting him behind a bad offensive line early could have a negative impact on his long-term development. Constantly dealing with pressure causes bad habits, and we're unfortunately already starting to see Fields pick up some of those bad habits. On a few different dropbacks, Fields understandably felt like he didn't have enough time to progress, so he would lock onto one read with a receiver open somewhere else in the concept. As long as the offensive line is this bad, Fields is going to continue to pick up bad habits that could seriously damage his development in the long term. Call me crazy, but I think Matt Nagy would be smart to put Fields back on the bench after what happened on Sunday. Fields is not going to fix any of the problems with the Bears offense, and by playing him, you're taking an unnecessary risk. I still believe that Fields can live up to the pre-draft expectations, but it's important to understand that this game was not just on Matt Nagy. Should the Bears still clean house? Probably. Not for the game plan itself, but for the fact that the situation made it impossible to have a good game plan. Matt Nagy has had 3 years, and Ryan Pace has had 6 to build a contender. And despite a few good moves over the years, the duo has failed to do so. Sunday was rock bottom, which is good news for Bears fans because it literally cannot get any worse. But Chicago should probably hit the reset button before irreversible damage is done to Justin Fields. Before I go, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, MyBookie. Just by reading some of the comments I get on my videos, I know that a lot of you guys have pretty strong opinions about how things are going to play out this season. So if you want to put your money where your mouth is, MyBookie is the best place to do so. You can bet on pretty much anything. You can choose teams to win outright with moneyline picks, you can pick teams to beat the spread, you can bet on weekly player props, division winners, conference championship winners, or even the Super Bowl winner. MyBookie has got it all. If you're more into sports other than football, MyBookie has MLB, NBA, NHL, MMA, and golf odds as well, just to name a few. And they're giving my viewers a very generous offer of doubling your first deposit of up to $1,000. All you have to do is use my promo code BILLY100 at checkout. So if you want to put your football knowledge to the test, or just make the games a little bit more interesting, MyBookie has got you covered. Again, that's promo code BILLY100 to double your first deposit of up to $1,000 at checkout. Also, I pick 5 teams to beat the spread weekly on my Patreon, so if you want to put your money where my mouth is, or if you'd just like to support the channel, check that out at the link in the description. I think that's all I've got for now though, so until next time, later.